Hi everyone, welcome to week 8 of the Fintech Saudi Summer Sessions. My name is Sagar Shah, I'm part of the Fintech Saudi team. And this week we are going to be talking about everything to do with personal finance and wealth management. We're really pleased to have Chalmers with us. He's an associate partner at EY. He's also the lead for wealth and asset management transformation solution leader at EY. So has a wealth of knowledge, and we're really pleased to have Bo with us today. By the end of this session, you will all have a really good understanding about what is personal finance, what is wealth management, and how the area is being disrupted by technology. As ever, if you have any questions, please do add them into the Q&A. And at the end, we will try to get through as many questions as possible. So without further ado, I'd like to hand it over to Bo.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for having me. I will start my video as well and start sharing my screen. Give me a moment. But obviously, I'm very pleased to be with you today and to have the opportunity to share some perspectives. Let's put it that way. Can you see my screen, Sagar?
Yeah, your screen's being visible.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So thanks again. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session about the topic of personal finance and wealth management. I feel very honored to be asked by Saudi Fintech with a question to share some perspectives with you today. We have 1 hour for today's session, and while for the majority it will be me probably who's talking, feel free to ask any questions in the chat, and I'll try to address these at the end. And if we will not cover your questions, I might do this post the session. So good to know. So all materials will be shared with you. So don't try to write down everything you'll see today, as it could mean that I might skip over some of the contents as well if I feel that we're running out of time. As mentioned, my name is Boudewijin Chalmers. I'm consulting leader for the wealth and asset management industry in the Netherlands at EY. Also co-leading the wealth and asset management transformation solution across Europe for EY. And I spent my career working across many continents and always been fascinated by the subject of personal finance and wealth management. And also the challenges this offers to the financial institutions, like who I am mainly advising. So today's session is structured in 3 parts. So first we'll discuss what personal finance is, wealth management is, and then how it has evolved over time. Then we'll discuss a bit more the trends that we see in this space, and we'll end with some more technological enabled elements in personal finance and wealth management, because also that industry clearly is impacting the world of personal finance and wealth management. So let's get into it. While personal finance is about day-to-day managing and budgeting of cash, wealth management deals with managing the preservation and growth of wealth. And there are many definitions for personal finance and wealth management. However, for today, I'd like to use the following, and we'll relate back to that during the session as well. So when we're speaking about personal finance, we see personal finance as the process of planning and managing personal financial activities, such as earning an income, spending your money, saving, investing, and protecting someone's assets. Like a budget or a financial plan can, for example, outline the process of managing your own money. And when we're talking about wealth management, it's more specifically about the coordination and planning of an individual's wealth, and then to take into account the current and future needs of the individual, his or her family, and often involves a bit more of a consultative approach or process, where the advisor gains information about the client's wants and needs, about the specific situation, and then tailors a more personalized strategy that uses a range of financial products and services. Often a holistic approach is taken within the wealth management sector, so to meet the complex needs of a client. A broad range of services such as investment advice, estate planning, accounting, or looking at retirement or tax services might be provided. It is important to acknowledge that the financial services sector, and therefore also the wealth management sector, is very international in nature. So therefore the global and local industry developments shape today's and tomorrow's personal finance and wealth management sector, also in Saudi Arabia. There's some exciting and important developments taking place, and like we showcased a couple here. So first of all, as probably most of you know, Vision 2030. So the Saudi Vision 2030 led to the development of the Financial Services Development Program, and has a strong focus on supporting fintech activities. And you can think here of cashless target rates, increasing of household savings, increasing in financial services for small, medium enterprises, or other type of like SME-related efforts in financial services. Also, there's the intention to develop Saudi as a global fintech hub. And on the 24th of May, the Council of Ministers approved the launch of the Fintech National Strategy to make Saudi a global fintech hub. And this is a really exciting step forward. And really this commitment speaks to that as well. And then there's a topic around open banking. So the SAMA, which is the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority, has announced regulations for open banking that will be released towards the end of this year. And open banking is in development or is already developing in many other markets, like, for example, the United Kingdom or in Australia. This is examples where they've made some exciting steps already. And the concept of open banking is aimed at creating a more open banking landscape through the exchange of data more easily. So also the exchange of data between financial institutions. However, given the complexity of the technology infrastructure of large financial institutions, this is often not as easy as it sounds to actually execute. And these are just some examples that you're going to face in your local market as well. And there is so much more to come. And the developments in the financial services sector, and so the personal finance and wealth management space, are continuously evolving. It's important to realize that in the provision of personal finance and wealth management, we're dealing with a highly regulated market. And while there are rules and regulators for the wealth management industry will address challenges and create new opportunities, you also need to understand why these actually exist. Policymakers and regulations all have a key role to play in maintaining the safety and the correctness of the financial system. And policymakers, for example, they're focusing at looking at issues through like, in a way, a new lens. So economic developments, shifting investor demands and habits, environmental and social concerns. These are all affecting regulatory agendas with an enhanced focus on financing sustainable recovery, modifying rules for increasingly digital environment and hybrid working style, for example. On the other hand, like, there's obviously the regulation. So regulation also creates new market opportunities. As governments strive for, well, like a portion of the market expansion, new fund vehicles are being launched, private and real assets are being accommodated to promote economic recovery. Then additional capital markets are opening up to international investments and enterprises. Wealth management organizations not only need to deal with local regulations, but they also should keep in mind that there's like international AML or KYC regulations. So let me elaborate a bit further on that. Financial institutions need to be able to understand and explain to regulators where the money that they have under their administration, so the money of their clients, is actually coming from. This is needed to prevent money laundering activities and criminal use of the system. And this is typically referred to as anti-money laundering regulation, or AML, and is done through know your customer processes and procedures, which then is often referred to as KYC. And obviously there's much more around regulation, but like, you can't look at personal finance and wealth management without considering the importance and the role of the regulators and the policymakers as part of that. So from a client perspective, the personal finance and wealth management sector and the way personal financial services are being delivered has gone through a major evolution over time. And we're looking at like almost the past decades, like to compare like the developments in there and try to keep it relatively brief. And for example, in the 1990s, clients were like, well, what we currently call the baby boomers, wealthy people, and owned what we call the old money, which they inherited from family or from parents. This group of people at that time preferred meetings with an advisor directly without the interference of others, just like really face to face. The advice was delivered as such, like physically in a fancy building with red carpets, or even at the client's home. And it's also important to know that this advice was delivered through, for example, the use of printed paper portfolio overviews or reports that outlined the investment performance. And it was focused on the investment performance only. Well, then in the 2000s, enabled by the technological developments, we saw that financial advice became available for a much broader group of people with less wealth. So thresholds for these services were lowered. The client base increased with technology entrepreneurs. So, for example, those that were able to benefit from the technology boom. And we really saw like a shift towards that. So changing in clientele, like a slow change in the way advice was provided. And we saw that continuation in decades following that. So when we're speaking about the 2020s and in a way today, everyone can or should be able to receive financial advice. The clientele of wealth management is increasingly based on entrepreneurial wealth and becomes therefore as younger as well. So much more based on entrepreneurial clients. The technological developments and digital enabled way makes the provision of advice in a way cheaper and therefore also more accessible to the audience. Or let me say, like, it should make it more accessible to a broader audience because we see still challenges around that. And the way that like these personal finance and wealth management services are delivered are different from the 1990s and often combined of face-to-face and digital enabled interactions like to suit the needs of their clients. And different flavors exist in that. And then that's like, I'm sure like some of you will recognize that, is that like you can still deliver advice just purely through the advisor to the client in a face-to-face way. There's also ways that you can deliver advice purely digital. So for example, through the use of what we then call robo-advisors. Or there is what we call a hybrid way, where you combine the power of the personal relationship, so like the advisor, the physical advisor, with the use of technology to deliver the advice in an efficient, in an efficient way. Also, the financial advice provided has become more holistic, and it goes beyond investment advice only. So as I mentioned earlier, in the earlier days, advice was delivered focused on the investments only. Well, right now it goes beyond the investments. And it starts to consider the broader financial well-being of their clients. And so it also considers things like pensions or mortgages or insurance or items that I just mentioned earlier around, like, for example, estate planning or financial planning. So it's probably quite a lot to absorb based on what I shared and what it's all about. But I think the important takeaway on this section here is that the industry, it continues to evolve through the use of new innovations or like new technology, but at the same time that there's always a role to play for example, regulators. And we continue to see that these days as well with the introduction of new products, even for those interested in cryptocurrencies. That's where the regulator now is focused on and determine, okay, what's then the role that we can or should play in this in order to manage and protect the financial system. So if we then start to look at trends, there are many, as I just mentioned. We see, or we show here, 8 different global trends. I'll briefly mention them and I will go deeper in each of them after that. There's 8 global trends, and they're all different. Let's put it different in nature. So we start with hyper-personalization, for example, where the use of technology, data, and analytics is there to get a very deep understanding of clients, which then is used to tailor each client interaction, not only the financial advice provided, but each interaction that the client has with a financial institution. And that could be an interaction in a personal way, so to support the advisor, as I mentioned earlier, or that could be just like a purely digital way, but through the use of analytics, you can tailor that and customize that. The second point relates to access to personal data. for example, enabled by open banking, and very much also the willingness by individuals to share their data for the benefit of, in our context for today, receiving financial advice. And I'm sure most of you will be also comfortable sharing data when it comes to new purchases or other type of related activities to get a more personalized response to that. But in order to get that, you need to provide your personal data to a third party for them to use. Then there's the whole topic around transparency and trust. Trust in financial services remains an important factor, like in the use of the system itself. And part of that also relates to the transparency provided, transparency in the fees or the costs that are being paid, but also transparency in the system. And what we've seen over the past 20 years is that clients have become more and more involved in managing their own personal finances. And they have been more proactive also to their advisor to better understand like what they were actually providing as an advice. So the advisor is being challenged more often than ever actually to provide that insight. Well, then there's accessibility to a wider audience, which obviously is enabled by technology. So we're not only looking more at, like, as a financial institution, offering financial advice to reach the people that are close in the street or close to the office or in the city or in the country. No, increasingly it's become a global audience. And like I said, this is much enabled by technology, but also by the globalization of the world that we live in. Then there's the topic of investing with impact. And the topic of sustainable investing for individuals, which is not only relevant to financial institutions, but it's absolutely of interest of the individuals. And you will hear and see more about that every day. The past 2 years have been like a game changer when it comes to sustainable investing. Then we see a shift to more virtual interactions. I mentioned it already a couple of times. And a corona pandemic really has learned us that we actually can interact in a very good way in a virtual setting, like in a way we do today. And then there's the rise of platforms and ecosystems, where we see industries and ecosystems increasingly converge. So for example, when the technology players start offering financial services, right, like the Amazons or the Googles or whatever technology provider you might use, like increasingly providing also like insurance type of services or payments type of services. And then there's also obviously the emergence of new technology. So we see now every year new technology arising and being adopted. Well, combine all these things and you understand how dynamic this industry is and has to be in order to keep up with all the change. I will zoom in onto a couple of these on the next slides. So recently, personal finance and wealth management has centered around hyper-personalization, which is made possible by all the client data that has become available. And clients are also demanding this. So 30% of the wealth management clients, and this is based on our own research from UI, 30% of the wealth management clients are considering leaving their bank or their financial institution due to the lack of a personalized approach. 72% of the wealth management clients are actually willing to share data about their personal financial goals and ambitions. And just 16% of financial services firms consider themselves excellent at attracting value for their data, showing the enormous room for improvement that there is in the use of data capabilities to actually offer those personalized services and advice. This is a bit of a detailed slide. Don't try to read all the numbers and words on this slide. Again, like you will receive this, but this is based on UI research among 2,500 wealth management clients, individuals, across the world in 2021. So that's been a year ago. And wealth management clients indicate that there's no institution that are as comfortable with sharing their personal data with than their wealth manager. So this means that data to be used to tailor financial advice in order to meet the needs of clients should be very well accessible to improve the quality of the advice that is being provided. Also very interesting to see here is like where people are less comfortable with sharing the data. Well, and here you can think about like search engines, well, online stores, but obviously also social media. And at the same time, we use it all quite often, which is interesting to consider. Millennials and younger, so like for the ease of it, people born or less after 1982 or 1983, clearly are more comfortable sharing their data, which I think is important to acknowledge as well. And you see actually them exceeding in this part here quite dramatically compared to all the other age categories. Let's put it that way. I personally, when I saw this overview for the first time, was really surprised to see like how high the wealth manager actually rated. And at the same time, I was not surprised, because wealth management is in a way around relationships and trust. For example, it exceeds a doctor or a healthcare provider, which is quite interesting to observe. In addition to personalization, transparency and building trust with clients are very important values in wealth management, or in which wealth managers improve over time. So one of the wealth managers' main jobs is creating trust and believes their clients are charged fairly. The solution they offer is a combination of increasing transparency and improving how the value of their offerings and services is communicated to clients. And I think when we compare it with the survey results in 2019, client perception of transparency and value for money are improving, meaning that the providers of personal finance and wealth management services are actually improving in their ability to establish trust and establish transparency. This is another complex slide. Although positive trends are recognized, like wealth managers need to face the complex and evolving client expectations, which differ among clients with different demographics. And what this overview here shows is that both like client segments and products and services on the vertical axis, and how digital adoption is low or high. And on the horizontal axis, like how clients rate themselves in their ability to make a decision by themselves, and again, against low or high. So as an example, the services shown in the bottom left section require a more advisor-led interaction, while the top right section refers more to services that are well able to be like digital self-led, and clients would more or less like deliver or execute on it themselves. And looking ahead, firms must ensure that their segmentation models can adapt as clients' lives evolve. Understanding investment goals, ethical beliefs, digital appetite is ultimately key to optimizing client engagement by financial institutions. So clients are now investing for purpose and looking beyond on return on investments, making it more challenging than ever to understand client unique expectations and needs. And wealthy clients are demanding guidance from their wealth manager, their financial advisor, to meet their sustainability objectives. The client's perception today is that their wealth managers are actually not sufficiently understanding their personal sustainability objectives, which is an important element and important area for financial service providers, relationship managers, like to address. As clients are increasingly investing in purpose and are looking beyond the return on investment only. 78% of the clients worldwide have goals related to sustainability in their lives. And 91% of the millennials indicate to have sustainability goals. Also important to note is that the younger a person is, the higher the expectation that his or her wealth manager to their wealth manager or advisor, that they screen the investments based on like ESG factors, which are like the different ways of looking at sustainability, which clearly indicate a shift in focus. However, many millennials do still not actively link their sustainability preferences to their ability to make an impact with their investments. I think also important here to understand is that while, and I've had this discussion quite a lot in the recent weeks when discussing like insights like this, is that While clients might say that they have high sustainability goals, or many clients have sustainability goals, if you really ask them to articulate around, okay, well, and how do you see that? Like, what is that related to? Clients really struggle to articulate actually what their sustainability goals are. So also there's a room for coaching by a personal advisor or financial advisor as part of that. At the same time, like I said, like while the clients struggle with the articulation, they also indicate that they feel that their sustainability goals are not well enough understood by their wealth manager. So also the wealth manager or the financial advisor has a role to play in gaining that like that experience and knowledge, that insights in what that client actually is looking for. And so clients believe that more can be done by the financial advisor to fully understand their goals. I think also interesting, more specifically, 42% of the women believe that like their wealth manager really understands their sustainability goals. And I think this is important as women are amassing greater wealth than ever globally, and are adding $5 trillion to the wealth pool globally every year. So it's an important group that we should not ignore, and it comes also to the way we look at our clients or at the clients for personal finance and wealth management. And we now reach the last section of the presentation. And here we zoom in a bit more on the role of technology in the financial advice and wealth management services, and therefore how that's been delivered. So one of the biggest current and future disruptions to existing service delivery models comes from a major shift to virtual preferences among wealth clients, and where technology is really around the corner. So wealth management clients have accelerated their use of digital technology during like the pandemic, and this seems certain to lead to a permanent change in the behavior of both firms and investors. And this is further supported by some facts or statements like that I would like to walk you through. So we understand that almost 51 to around 51% of the wealth management and personal finance clients plan to use more digital and virtual tools than they currently already doing. So that's more than today. And then we are already considering that we are have a long period of the pandemic behind it. So they want more than what actually is currently being used. The higher the wealth level of the client, the higher the expected future use of digital and virtual tools. As this group tends to be like more tech savvy. So more wealth people have, often they're more tech savvy, and therefore also probably more comfortable using the technology to interact with their financial advisor. This is completely the opposite from what some other research might say, that actually like when people with lower wealth or that are younger want more of that, and like people with more wealth and like maybe a bit more older, that they want to meet the person like more face to face. So I think that's an important one to keep in mind. So really the use of technology is there for everyone. Older clients, for example, retirees, are really lagging behind this trend, and like prefer traditional face-to-face and more personal interactions. And I think this is an important addition to my earlier point. So like the more wealthy are very high, like very tech savvy, but when people are very old, they always need that some kind of assurance through an individual. So they're happy to like use some of the digital interactions, but they would never move to that stage, or not like the current generation would never move to that stage of doing everything or make an important decision through a digital virtual channel only. They really wanted assurance of their personal advisor or a relationship manager. The virtual delivery of advice, so for example, Zoom that we're currently using, or Microsoft Teams, is also expected to increase. So 52% of wealth management and personal finance clients worldwide indicate that they want more of that. And millennials also prefer more virtual advice than the baby boomer generation. So I think that's also an important one to keep in mind. So you can't really get away anymore if you're not offering like digital capabilities or technologies for your clients or for the clients to actually being used. As mentioned, the pandemic has changed the way client interactions take place, really, like it's permanently, so to say. Client interactions have transitioned to a digital model, and the value of these interactions can be significantly enhanced by augmenting the wealth manager with some contextual relevant insights. And on this overview, we want to show you how the role of the wealth manager like wealth manager or financial advisor is actually evolving. So the traditional role was aimed at navigating internal complexity of banks for their clients with focus on investments. Where we see the future role being more focused on acting as a financial advisor and service orchestrator, like available when clients need them, with a more holistic approach to the client's needs. And we've discussed the topic around like more holistic services. This is made possible and therefore enabled by things like digital tools that add to the insights advisor can offer to their clients in order to meet client needs. So it's not replacing the advisor, but really complementing the advisor. The need to focus on more relevant client insights. So ultimately offering client insights that are not relevant to the individual are a big dissatisfier. So like organizations that are sending push emails or messages to all their clients, of which maybe 10% is really appreciating like the communication they're getting, like are really missing the point here. And then we see the increasing number of digital interactions that allow for advice being delivered at a lower cost, and therefore also making it more accessible to a broader group of people, or it actually should be made more accessible by a broader group of people. So what we see is that the role of the advisor really will shift towards the profile of a financial needs or requirements engineer. I use the word orchestrator, and really there to support the clients and serving in a trusted role, like to deliver services, not just within the bank, but also across the external partners. And what I mean with that is actually like that they're more start thinking in an ecosystem perspective, where the financial institution might partner with a non-financial institutions to still offer more or different type of services to their clients. So to show what's actually possible already, I've included a short video to show some of the capability that exists today. And it's focused on an augmented relationship manager, and like how that could support the financial advisor in be more efficient and getting and capturing all the insights. So I'm really going to try if it works now. We haven't practiced this, so let's see how this goes. And Sagar, like if the sound is not good enough, please let me know.
I don't think the sound's coming through, Bo.
Not coming through, you say?
No, it's not coming through.
Oh, that's a bit annoying. But thanks for letting me know. I'm just like, it's almost at a maximum. I'm just briefly checking what's then the easiest way to do that.
What you can do is include the link afterwards, and we can share it around to the participants.
I think that's an excellent idea, or I like attach the video. So I think that is perfectly fine. It was actually a really interesting video, so I tease you with that. So like, please have a look afterwards, and I will elaborate a bit on it, just like right now, like with my voiceover. So the augmented relationship management really, as I mentioned, is an opportunity for wealth managers to accelerate their proposition by providing real-time insights through an all-in platform. And features that are included that we were actually supposed to see here is, for example, a text converter engine that converts the speech, so like the words and like use of the client, straight into text, and to structure the information straight away, like it becomes readable and it's captured in the system or like also on the screen for the clients. So the client straight away sees like if what they say is actually captured correctly. And for the advisor, it's something that like they don't have to write down the information because it's already been used. There's other elements here as well like for example, natural language understanding, so NLP, of the conversation that extracts the key entities to create events which trigger other parts of the interface and create a meeting summary and action. So what you will see when you look at the video, and I might actually, like, without playing it, like showcase like what you look here. So in the meeting summary that you could see here, like the key point on the left hand side, like the key points of the meeting are captured. So you can see it straight away. And at the same time, there's an action or the actions that are there. So the follow up. So really like making visible, okay, there's an action for me here or for whoever it might be, to actually follow up on that post a session, but the client sees that it's written down. And then there's also something around, for example, next best action. So next best action combines the conversation content and on what the bank already knows about the client, and makes real-time suggestions to the relationship manager. And that could be related to the topic of the conversation, but it could also be related to potential products or services. So it's really supporting also from a commercial side, the relationship manager. And there's many other elements that like are interesting to consider here. And this is for me a perfect example around how technology can support the financial advisor, so the human, without replacing the advisor and therefore the human. So it's really a hybrid way of looking at how personal finance or wealth management is delivered, and it already exists today. Then we're looking into artificial intelligence. Well, that's obviously like a step further ahead. Let's put it that way. So also artificial intelligence could help relationship managers save time to be able to focus on the client-oriented occupations. So with the help of AI, relationship managers will be able to spend less time and energy on repetitive and administrative tasks, which then gives them more time and energy to focus on the more customer-oriented creative activities where they really can add value to their clients. And to really get the benefits out of it, financial institutions need to embed AI, artificial intelligence, at all the stages of, well, the customer relationship. And these are the stages that you could think of. Like, this is an example of how you look at it. It can be more detailed or other elements, but these are the typical components that refer to the life cycle of a client relationship. So you can use AI in the acquisition stage when you're trying to win a new client. So using like building the business or building the relationships, using tailor-made marketing efforts and products and service suggestions. Then during the onboarding stage, so when you go through the process of setting up this new client, like within the organization, like you can receive services, and like also where like the KYC, so to know your customer process, takes place. The stage where advice and investments are provided, of course. So like in the way that investment advice is provided, AI looking at market data assessment, like is being suitable for that, but also like how it can support what we just saw, like a video call, or where like it becomes more digitalized, where there's a robo-advisor involved. Then we see the use of AI in like the ongoing relationship management, so like providing value-adding insights and like the general conversations that you're having. And then there's also the reporting that provides on the performance of the services offered to clients. And that's again like where AI has a role to play to provide that tailored and client-specific insights can be used. So you see here that artificial intelligence has the ability to be very broad in use. But at the same time, the real adoption absolutely has some way to go. So we see with our clients, for example, that everyone wants to talk about it, but the majority is nowhere near being ready for actually using artificial intelligence at this stage, because they have like data and technology issues that they need to resolve first. So I think conceptually, it's fantastic, and we're going to hear a lot about it. But at the same time, I think like it has to evolve with the industry in the coming years. As I mentioned, like AI technology should be put at the service of a wealth manager, where like we refer to what we said, the hybrid model, right? Like that leverages off like the digital technology from, for example, robo-advisor, while still using the human to support in complex issues and provide value added, like a human overlay to some of the decisions that they're proposing. And this overview shows the different ways that technology and human can be combined, and how it's offered to clients. So on the left-hand side, we see like fully automated, non-discretionary investment advice, which is then delivered like through a fully automated solution. So here, the financial advisor is not involved, right? Like everything is being done by the client themselves through the digital capabilities that they have in front of them. So this is like a full robo-advisor. This is very cost efficient, but really, like about using the technology as a low-cost execution platform for clients. So it's not really like advice which is being delivered through this. It's really like execution of investment, like preferences or investment decisions. The middle example is like what we called it, the self-service investment and financial advice, where the client is driving a lot of the client interactions with the advisor, but also execute certain activities by himself without needing the financial advisor. So this is really where the hybrid model comes in play. A client is comfortable doing certain things themselves, but for the more complex questions, really relies on the financial advisor. Or in some instances, just needs the reassurance of a financial advisor that what he thinks or is planning of doing is actually the right thing. And then there's like the guided investment and financial advice decision, where really the advisor is fully in the lead of the interactions and communications. So this was more or less it. Like time goes quite quick, and like I obviously understand that I've covered a lot of different content, a lot of different topics. Maybe overwhelming for some. Like I said, like all the information become available, but I'm also accessible for any questions. Like I've added an overview here, like when the materials are being shared. So this overview provides you with some references to thought leadership and research that we developed. Absolutely worth reading, as it includes great insights ranging from digital assets and the use of AI, which we finished with like two more customer experience related questions, like the way service models are evolving, the way we see the industry changing. Absolutely worth having a look, and you can register there to continue to receive new insights around that. And yeah, like I said, like we've reached the end of the session, so hope you find it useful. Took something away of it. Like please find my contact details here at the top, but also included the contact people or the contact details of some of my colleagues in Middle East, so a bit closer to home. So if you want to get in touch with them, like please feel free to do that. So thanks for joining the session, and I think we're going to the Q&A now, or the questions. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
Thanks both for a really great session. I think that gave me a lot of insight as well, in particular in some of the areas which I wasn't clear on. So thank you for that. And we've covered a lot. So definitely, I think it will be useful for everyone to re-watch this recording. The recording will be shared and the slides, so that you can sort of pick up on the different parts. Just going straight into the questions, Bo. So one question which we've been asked is around the skills required. So I guess this is more from somebody who's looking to get into wealth management. What career advice would you give to somebody who wants to work in wealth management? What sort of skills do you see are in demand in wealth management? I think you touched on some of those areas around data and technology. It might be useful to expand those a bit more.
Yeah, no, brilliant question. And like I'm not like a personal financial advisor, although I have long considered going that path. So I always get interested when people ask that question. Like I think it's like quite broad. Like if you asked like me, like when I was younger, but like 25, 30 years ago, it would be very much theoretical based, like you needed to get a license and you need to understand like what investments, like how to invest. But we see that the skill sets of a financial advisor are changing and evolving as well, already have. Where it becomes more important also to have like a personal interaction or personal conversation with a client. So it becomes also the soft skills, like almost empathy, skill sets that are required. So it becomes more broad. And I think I referred to some of the terms around like an orchestrator type of role that you need to develop. So I think absolutely you need to have like the academic and the theoretical backgrounds to obviously get yourself to a certain point. But if you're very strong in just like your social skills, your social interactions, then you're actually in a way well placed also to fulfill a role like that. And technology will evolve and continue to be around. So you will ultimately deal with that. And I think to add to that, what's quite interesting is that we're in a current age or stage where the previous generation of financial advisors is close to retiring. So you really need a new type of, or younger financial advisors around that will come in with a different skill set to also meet and like be able to operate in the world today. So not sure if it straight away answers the question, but I think it just like outlines that there's just like many different factors like to consider in there. But happy to elaborate on that a bit further. Yeah.
I guess the follow up to that would be what technology related skills. Because I appreciate if you're more dependent on technology, then wealth management companies need more technology related skills for developing their robo advisory services, for developing digital platforms. So, do you see any specific areas within that where there are needs which are and opportunities for anyone who's looking at a career?
More so for someone in a career that is more to the technological side of it.
Correct. Yeah, technical skills.
Oh, absolutely. Like it's huge. Like I think the amount of robo advisors or digital advice providers, like it's increasing by the day, and then sometimes like they're merging and blending. But like those capabilities, like you see a lot of the fintechs that are actually doing that. Like are in high demand. And once in a while you see one of the bigger financial institutions taking over one of these fintechs to really bring the capabilities in-house. So that is also part of the environment there. But someone interested in like working on the technology that enables advice to be provided in a digital way, or someone interested like in like being part of like the development of a robo advisor, I think there's enormous opportunities there. Yeah, like we've seen parts of that in recent years, but it will continue to go on. Yeah.
And just on robo advisors, Bo, so we've got a couple of questions here, just explaining what exactly is robo advisory in terms of is it to do with algorithmic analysis and trading? Is it to do with automating the function of what a physical trader would do? So if you could elaborate a little bit more on that and just really how it's disrupting the wealth management industry as well.
Yeah, so like I think it touches on quite a couple of things. So I'll try to articulate it or do it in a logical way. So first of all, like how is it disrupting wealth management and the way personal finance is delivered? I think, well, keep in mind that all that technology didn't exist or doesn't exist. The only way to then deliver financial advice to your clients is through a financial advisor, which is often one of the most expensive people within the organization. And guess who's paying for that? The actual client. So it's costly, and it's going through an individual the whole time. At some point, there were people that really saw the opportunity that technology provides. Also to leverage data and insights to bring that to clients. So not through the human, but going directly to the client and do that in a digital way and offer that at a much more affordable rate. So for example, where wealth management and a pure personal advice might be accessible only for people with a certain amount of wealth, a robo-advisor you could access with just like zero or a very limited amount of money, and you could invest in that with a smaller amount. So I think that's an important evolution. So we really thought that robo-advice was going to bring the way advice and financial advice and investment advice was provided to a much broader audience. However, what we've also seen is that purely and standalone robo-advice is never going to replace the financial advisor, because many people still need that assurance or reassurance of an advisor when they're going to make or an investment decision or something else around that. So there's many people that still prefer to have that interaction with the financial advisor. And then there's, like I said, different flavors of it. So some of the robo-advisors, or what we call robo-advisors, are very much on the like really the execution platform. So as an individual, I want to make a trade in a stock or in what we then call an ETF. I stay away from all the terms, but like in a type of investment. And I could do that all by myself at a lower cost. And then we saw like the evolution where like some of the advice from the system might have been proactively provided back to the clients based on the existing investments, based on data that they had available. So you see that space continuously evolving. So if we, from a talent perspective, it would be a space where like we absolutely see data scientists, data engineers, but also people like with like another type of technological background to play a role. Like it's about integrating different data sources in there, market data. It's quite broad, so to say. But clearly, robo-advice has been a disruption to with a very traditional personal finance and wealth management space.
And thank you, Bo. And I guess one follow-up question related to specifically data. So what's the importance of privacy enabling regulations and technology in the usage of data? So can we have, I guess, privacy enablement and data harvesting together, or do we have to sort of strike the right balance?
Excellent question. I'm not sure who asked, but like that's a very important question in here. Like I think increasingly, like we have the privacy regulation or legislation, and it's there with a reason. Otherwise, like our data would go everywhere, anywhere. So a lot can still be done, or everything can still be done, as long as there's consent provided. So it might come across as a bit of a slowdown in that sense of like, I need to get first approval of a client before I can actually use the information. So you see advisors having that conversation. I would like to use this and this data from you because that makes me able to deliver advice in a more personalized or tailored way. But they need to request that approval first. So that is absolutely changing. I do not see it as a limiting factor, but it will mean that advisors need to convince some of their clients more first to actually provide certain information or data before they actually can access it. And they will have to deal with the fact that not all the clients are comfortable sharing that with them. But what we saw on one of the very detailed slides that I shared with you is that there's no institution that they're as comfortable with sharing their data as with their wealth manager.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really important point. The trust of the wealth manager, and that trust being sort of absolute with because of the regulated industry. So the regulations has to be there to support people willing to trust that data with the right type of individuals. The reason why you'd share it with a wealth manager, but you may not share it with your Google or your technology provider, which may not have the same level of regulations. So I think that's an important point. Looking more at a macro level now, what are the I guess there's questions around how do you see the wealth management industry changing? So are you seeing fintechs breaking into the space? Are there any examples of fintechs you can give which are doing some really cool, interesting things in wealth management and personal finance?
Answer is yes. I see absolutely a role for fintechs. In fact, they're already there and they're already part of the ecosystem. Like I can mention a couple. And some of them might already been known, right? So like in the US, you see companies, right? Like like I come back with the name, but like they actually use like in a way robot advice technologies, or really technology players, but then like support with like a financial advisor to that. So they leverage like all the capabilities that exist today to be very efficient, but use that to support the advisor. You also see like where like there's more, and that's I think the power of where fintechs have a role to play. They can focus on something very specific in such a specific way that like a larger financial institution would never be able to do that just because of their lack of capability. So, you know, Capital Preferences is a firm, and I just mentioned them because we had them last week at an event with all private banks and wealth managers here in the Netherlands. And what they do is actually they use what they call gamification to identify the sustainability preferences of an individual, which then is being used to determine the right investment products that then could be offered to a client. And I probably have to elaborate a bit on gamification as a term. But like that is really like where they use literally some games, you could see it as a game, to identify the preferences of a client rather than using a questionnaire or an Excel spreadsheet where the advisor has to do a tick box exercise like to determine a risk profile or to other type of preferences. So they engage with the client in a different way through the insights that they have around that. So I found that personally a very interesting one. You see Invest Suite as being an interesting fintech as well. What they like, they offer a whole range of things, so like about like interesting reporting. But what's interesting in the way that deliver reporting is actually they can obviously deliver a report just like in a PDF or on paper, but it also do it in a digital way, where actually the insights over a certain period, because like wealth management clients typically get a report outlining the performance and insights over a certain period, being it a quarter, a half year, or once a year. And in the insights that they're providing, they actually have like a person embedded in that, like almost in a video that actually walks the client through the insights, and it's all digitized. Like it's fascinating to see how then the human actually brings the message across, gives a complete different feel with the insights and the messages that comes with that, instead of a client having to read a whole document with all numbers and data points themselves. So that's quite an interesting one. Yeah, like you have like the usual suspects around robo-advice. But I think important trend there is that you see now the larger financial services providers actually sometimes buying them. So Nutmeg is an important one in the UK. That was a very well-established robo-advice, digital advice provider, but it got acquired by JP Chase. And JP Chase used that to enter the UK market. So in a way, they bought a well-established player, and that became their UK business that they're running right now and like that are adapting. So coming back to the overarching question, is there a role of fintech? Absolutely. Like I showed briefly the value chain of how advice is being delivered from acquisition, onboarding, to advice, to relationship management, to reporting. And I think just like 10 years ago, the only technology evolution and developments we saw were in that investment space. And we now see that fintechs are actually covering the whole spectrum across the wealth management value chain. So it doesn't mean that they're taking over everything. To my earlier point, that they're really good in something specific, that's what they focus on. So there's absolutely the opportunity for a partnership model for wealth managers or personal advice providers where they leverage some of the capabilities of a fintech as part of their broader model. And I think that's where the future, the evolution or development goes. Like personal finance and wealth management will exist and will be here to stay. I hope it becomes more and more affordable so that it becomes accessible for the people that really need it and might not always have all the wealth, but that's my personal opinion. But I think really what we're going to see is that more ecosystem partnership model where financial institutions are going to work with like external parties, leveraging their capabilities or adding or providing new types of services. Another area of development that I foresee, although it's on the horizon for a while, but hasn't really come through, is the role that larger technology players are going to play. So what if a Google or like an Amazon are going to deliver personal finance and wealth management related services? Like they offer already sometimes insurance or other type of products, but really when they go big, like they're tech enabled, so they have everything around that. They have an enormous amount of data. So they would be, from my perspective, in a sweet spot to deliver these services. So I think it's quite a fascinating space about what the future is going to bring us. Yeah.
Thank you, Bo. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I mean, I'm sure we could go on for a lot longer about a lot of these questions, and we've got a lot of questions still there. So apologies, we can't get through all of them today. But Bo, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate your efforts and contribution to this, to the FinTech Summer Sessions. I think the fact we've still got over 2,500 people joined shows that there is a lot of interest in this area, and there's a lot of, and people took a lot away from this. So thank you very much for that. Thank you to everyone who joined for this session as well. We are in week 8 out of week 10, so there's 2 more left. Next week, we are continuing next week, despite there being a holiday for some companies and universities. We are going to continue next week. And next week's a great one. We've got blockchain, digital assets, and DeFi. So that's definitely one to tune into. And by that point, you'll be a comprehensive understanding of that area as well. So other than that, all I've got to say is thank you very much again. Have a good evening. And Bo, thank you once again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks to everyone for joining, for the questions. And like I said, please, you have my contact details, or soon you have it, or otherwise through Cigar. Please ask the questions. I'm happy to elaborate. Also, other questions that relate to different topics. But thanks for having me. It was a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today.
Thanks, Bo. Take care, everyone.